Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm coming at you with a get ready with me makeup look, also talking about the Netflix limited series Self-Made, inspired by the life of Madam CJ Walker. And I'm going to be talking about the business tips and the business notes that I have been taken from this, while also talking about and touching on the inaccuracies and in spite and despite of that, the relatable topics and relatable themes that are in this movie. So I hope you guys enjoy, but before I go into it, just don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Please hit that like button. If you want, hit the notification bell, hit that subscribe button. I actually want to know, for those of you who did see it, what are your thoughts and what are your comments, and what did you like or not like about the film? And just put that down in the comment section because I want to read, and if I do miss anything in this video, please let me know. So thank you so much for tuning in, and just let's get into the look. So I'm going to be going in with my ColourPop Kathleen Lights Dream Street palette, and I'm going to go in these colors right here. So I basically wanted to touch on Self-Made, and I know there is, a lot of controversy, well, maybe not a lot, but there is a bit of controversy surrounding it and the inaccuracies of the story of the series. Addie Monroe, if I remember correctly, Addie Monroe was loosely based on Annie Malone, who was in real life, Madam CJ Walker's mentor, and she was the one who also started a school that made her, a millionaire as well. But in the series, they wanted to talk about, the beef, potential beef, and it was found out that that beef was made up. And this is the problem I have with the inaccuracies of films like this. And remember, the series was titled Self-Made, inspired by, not necessarily based on her story. And this series, I should say, was actually based off of a book written by the great-great-granddaughter of Madam C.J. Walker, Alelia Walker, I think her name was. But it was written by her and based off of that book. So I'm pretty sure that the great-great-granddaughter had, something to do with it and gave certain okays, because I don't think, she wouldn't have said yes if she wasn't fully okay with it. Anyway, I was definitely disappointed at the inaccuracies and the beef, and I honestly think that they were definitely trying to, bait people in with a colorism story. But I have to really say this: despite the inaccuracies, there is a level of relatable topics being put out there in that movie. So yes, colorism was a problem. Colorism still is a problem. Let's stop acting like, we're kind of looking at this movie with a 2020 mindset a little bit, and a modern day mindset about how, things are a little more progressive or things are changing and things like that. So we're saying, well, why did you create this beef? And it's true. If it never existed, don't do it. But let's stop acting like, colorism wasn't predominant, wasn't, a thing back then. And how it honestly still plays a part today, especially in rivalries and, in our community. Let's just stop acting like it's something that didn't exist and people are trying to just bring it back up. And I do think they're kind of baiting people with that topic because it gets people talking. I do think it's about baiting people and selling on controversy. But let's stop acting like, it wasn't a real thing and it didn't play a part. Now, getting into the other stuff. There are a lot of, despite the inaccuracies, there are a lot of notes that you can take from watching Self-Made. There are a lot of business advice and business tips that I have saw because I have seen because I am an entrepreneur, and there are a lot of things that I can take notes from this movie. So, for instance, Madam CJ Walker was very tenacious. She said, you know what, I'm done doing laundry. I can sell these products. I can sell hair products. Your product, Addie, grew my hair back, so I think I can sell for you. And here's the thing, she sold on relatability. So basically, even in, her actual life, she used her face and her image on her own products. So it basically appeals to the average, unambiguous, brown or dark skinned black woman with 4C type hair, and she puts her face on and says, hey, this product works for me, it can definitely work for you. She's selling to an untapped market versus Annie Malone, or even in the movie Addie Monroe, selling to or using mulatto or lighter skinned, fairer skinned certain textured haired women to sell her products, because she basically said, oh, colored women will do anything to look like me even though they know they can't. But let's just stop acting like that wasn't a thing going on back then, or even in some cases in the early 2000s and 2010s. Let's just stop acting like that doesn't exist. So if anything, I don't think it's trying to, well, I think they were trying to create fake beef, yes, for the sake of controversy, but I also do think they were touching on something relevant as well. Now, I don't approve of necessarily what they did, but if you think about it, it's relatable. And look, I've been critical of a lot of things that are relatable, because I said just because it's relatable doesn't mean that it should be necessarily shown, but you can actually say that there's something relatable to this. So, you know, Madam CJ Walker, she basically, well, Sarah, because before she called herself Madam CJ Walker, it was Sarah, but still, she starts selling to Black women, and she's selling on, you know, scarcity. She's selling on, there's an untapped market. There are brown and dark skinned women with 4C or type 4 natural hair, or what you call kinky hair, that aren't being sold to. So she's going into an untapped market. That's good business. Okay. She's selling to an untapped market or niche. 1, 2, when she gets upstaged at church by Addie. You can tell when she gets upstaged in church by Addie, she says, hey, I'm slashing my prices down, and I say we can sell them for less, and that will probably get people to say, you're having a sale, like throwing out sales. I've done that too. You throw out sales and you get people coming in the door. That's good. That's another good business strategy. Another thing I've learned from watching this movie was how there's going to be competition, and her competition apparently was Addie Monroe. And you have to think, there is competition in business. There is rivalry. There are rivalries in business. So that is something that's a page out of that book that you can take. Another thing in business, or as a business entrepreneur, that you can take is the fact that, you know, she was very ambitious and tenacious. And you have to think, this is the 1900s. This is not like 2020 where we have more of an abundance of opportunities. We don't have all the opportunities in the world, especially as, you know, minority or people of color or Black female entrepreneurs. You know, we don't have all the ones in the world today, but we have more than what was given to us. So the fact that she was able to make it work at that time, you have to really think to yourself, wow, she had to be extra ambitious and extra, you know, tenacious. And that's another thing you can take as a business tip, you know, being tenacious and consistent and never giving up. You know, every time there was a door closed, she looked for another one that was open. She found opportunities, and she found, you know, networking opportunities. So the first time she went to the Booker T. Washington event and hoping to get her name called, that was a networking opportunity. That is what you do in business. Another thing I took in terms of business is how, you know, she was creating jobs. That's another thing, because she was stressing how, you know, there needs to be Black female entrepreneurship, or, you know, the fact that she's providing female entrepreneurship creates jobs for Black women, for Black people. That's actually good. That contributes to a Black economy in a way. Now, I have to admit this. I was very disappointed, but I wasn't surprised at the blatant, you know, sexism and misogyny that exists. See, this is one of the things that caused Black women to start either their own movements or become more feminist, because here you have a Black woman trying to get Black male investors. She didn't go to the white folks first, maybe because she knew she probably wouldn't get them firsthand. She went to them eventually, but it was the Black male investors that would not invest in a product. And we still see that today. And I can name you one example. Like, for example, the hip hop industry. A lot of times they won't endorse female artists or certain female artists. And it's like they have to, you know, go the extra mile and prove themselves. So if you think about it, it's no different than today. So how women had to work twice as hard as even Black women within their own community. She feels that she can get endorsed by her own people, Black men who have power, okay, or who have enough to actually help her get along, right? and yet and still they won't invest in her. And because her product mainly targets women, they look at the beauty industry as they said it was a very frivolous thing. It's not necessary. Even Booker T. Washington, with his sexism, says, well, we can't, talk about female entrepreneurship. In a way, I'm kind of sick of this false narrative that, some people like to say like black men weren't sexist or weren't horrible towards their women, and sexism is what killed the black, power or the black liberation movement. And I beg to differ, because I'm saying let's stop acting like there wasn't anything going on within the community or any misogyny or sexism that existed within our community that said, you know what, we're tired of this. Gonna go in this color right here. So it really goes to show like, wow, her people wouldn't even invest in her. But it also goes to show that that her target audience is women, and the black women actually invested in her. In terms of the sexism that I saw being portrayed or being put out there in that movie, was the fact that the idea that a black woman trying to own, or just a woman in general trying to own and build and become a millionaire, was seen as very emasculating towards the men. Because we even saw how Booker T. Washington kind of blatantly told her, we're not interested in that. Oh, we have to fight to get the black man free. And this is something that's been said constantly in black power or black empowerment and black liberation movements, that the main goal, the main target, the main end goal is basically to liberate the straight cisgender black man. But everybody else needs to be on board. But when you start bringing up you're a more marginalized person within that community, you start bringing up your problems and start bringing up, what's in it for you, and you start bringing up, your needs, you're always told, put that on the back burner. Your problems don't exist. Your problems doesn't need to be talked about. And I understand focusing on one thing at a time, but at the same time, it's like, hey, we're just as, we have enough plans. We have just as many plans, and we have just as many solutions to your problem that can benefit all of us as too. We play a part in here. So why are my problems put on the back burner, but we have to spend 24/7, 365 worrying about yours and only yours? And by the way, wasn't Booker T. Washington laid up with or was married to a Filipino or a Filipino woman? I've heard that. Wasn't that the case? So you see what I mean? And he was accusing her of trying to sell whiteness. And I knew for a fact that wasn't her intention, because her product really started off as hair grower. So how was he trying to sell whiteness? See, that's another narrative that kind of gets pushed. She's trying to sell whiteness. But then again, Annie Malone, she had fair skin and mixed women with certain hair type on her products, but Madam C.J. Walker has her image and her face on her products. You see what I mean? So how was she really, or the intention was to sell whiteness? How was that the intention? Gonna go in with my LA Girl gel eyeliner in black. Another thing that I noticed with the whole sexism argument is the idea of emasculating her husband, because that was another thing talked about, especially in those times. If a woman was doing more than a man, or if a woman was just doing something that was typically deemed as, I won't say masculine, but what was typically deemed as, something a man should do. So, and I understand, the relatable, I would say the relatable topic in that, because she was calling it her company, her business, even though he was his business partner. But in real life, he was a philanderer, he was a cheater, and she outgrew him, because eventually he was being irresponsible with the business, so she had to cut him loose. And that's what you kind of do in business too. They say a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and he was becoming a weak link, so of course she had to let him go. But I also heard in real life that he, had his own real estate company, so he was doing some things, okay? He was doing things, but I understand the topic of, she's trying to be an owner, and she's trying to own her own business, and it's looking as if she's emasculating him because, she's on her way to becoming a millionaire, and she's very tenacious and ambitious, and he just eventually stopped being as ambitious as her. And I'm gonna go in with my Pumped Up Colossal Mascara from Maybelline. So there are a lot of things you can take in terms of business. So despite the inaccuracies, the business side of it is something you can also take a note from. Now, for some of you who probably are talking about her daughter, and you know, the female love interest that she had. Turns out that was real, because in the book that the movie was based on, or the series was based on, I should say, in the book that it was based on, written by the great-great-granddaughter of Madam C.J. Walker, she wrote that, you know, Lilia had 3 other marriages to men before having a relationship with a woman. So yeah, that girl was bisexual. And let's just stop acting like LGBTQ, especially LGBTQ Black individuals, haven't existed since the beginning of time. Let's just stop acting like, you know, this is just a new thing, and you know, it just started with like the 60s or something. This has existed for a long time. Maybe they weren't as open or out, or it's not so talked about in history like a lot of other things that are not talked about in history, but it existed. I'm going to go in with my Master Prime by Face Studio Hydrating Primer from Maybelline, and I'm going to go in with my Range Beauty Foundation. Another thing that talked about in the film that I had to really touch on is the corporate espionage thing, you know, and the betrayal with inside your own business, and how there seems to be a lack of trust, how people can be sneaky. And it kind of played out more like a scripted drama show rather than something realistic, but it does happen in real life, where you have people that are trying to sneak inside and take, you know, from your business. This is not a completely unrelatable fact. This is not completely unrelatable. We've heard about businesses who've been infiltrated, and things that have been infiltrated where people have, you know, tried to undermine people from the outside within. And, you know, we saw that it was her brother-in-law who came in, I mean, not her brother-in-law, her son-in-law, who was working with Addie Monroe to find out all the stuff going on. And thank God for Lilia, because, you know, she found out and kicked him to the curb. To be honest, I was not too keen on Tiffany Haddish playing the daughter. I don't think she sold me on a whole 1900. Not too many people in there sold me on a 1900s, you know, kind of, especially slang, especially mannerisms. But again, we are working in 2020, and we kind of think with a 2020 mindset even when we shouldn't. So we have to realize that this is what happens when you try to work on a period movie with a modern day mindset. So some things will be off, some things will be inaccurate. So is it completely the writers, producers, and directors' fault? Not really. And a little side note, I'm actually glad that this time Octavia Spencer wasn't playing something as completely unrespectable, like, you know, a maid or something like that. I'm glad that she was able to play Madam C.J. Walker. I'm glad that there's finally a story being told about Madam C.J. Walker. I just don't like the inaccuracies, and I understand why people are upset at that too. All in all, I'm glad that it was a story instead of talking about, like, you know, slavery and stuff like that. It's about talking about the life of the first female, or first Black female millionaire. I'm glad they're making movies and shows about that. I went with my LA Girl concealer in Chestnut. Now, there was talk in the movie about the series, I should say. There was talk about the series that said, you know, Madam C.J. Walker emasculated her husband, and like I said, I don't think she intended to. I really don't think it was intended for her to emasculate. She was just had her eye on the prize so much. And another thing too, in the series, it was talked about how she had kidney disease and her kidneys were failing, and she was, you know, basically should take it down. And it kind of goes to show how, especially when you have to work twice as hard, especially as a woman, you basically could end up in an early grave. How, you know, your work and, you know, your eyes on the prize can push you so much that you can't be healthy. And, you know, even in her days, Madam C.J. Walker was a bigger woman. That could also be a contributing factor to her failing health. We never know. I also do think it's one that should serve also as something relatable, but also as a cautionary tale. Because, you know, I heard in the book, or from the real life of Madam C.J. Walker, she died pretty young. She died at 51 or 55, I believe. Gonna contour with my LA concealer in Mahogany. Set my face with my ColourPop setting powder, sheer press setting powder in Deep Dark. Now, getting back to Addie Malone, I remember that scene where she called her mom on the phone and said that her business was failing or her business wasn't doing as well as Madam CJ Walker. And the way her mother, kind of basically, I would say, gassed her head up by saying, hey, you're a light-skinned woman, so, you're good. And I feel like it kind of touched a little bit on the colorism topic in which we talk about today, about how there are people who are lighter skinned who kind of get gassed up and feel like, they're automatically great just solely because they're lighter skinned or fairer skinned. And that clearly doesn't always equate to success. But, you do live in a world. We do live in a world that, definitely doesn't completely uplift or doesn't, celebrate dark skin. I mean, it's getting better, but it's not perfect. And if you really think that they were just creating this, I mean, they were. But the fact that if you really think that they were just solely creating this just to cause controversy, which I believe they were, but again, relatable topics that are actual and mostly factual in terms of, the colorism conversation. Colorism did exist back then, and it was very predominant, and it was probably worse. Going with my blush from Maybelline in Berry. All in all, I feel like the series was actually a good one in terms of, taking notes from taking business notes, I should say. So I'm going to go in with the Honor Roll highlighter from the Crayon Case. So when you excuse all the inaccuracies and you really focus on the business side of it and a lot of other relatable topics, the film is actually good, and it's good on its own. Now, Chrissy, she does a really good job at kind of explaining, certain things outside of, the colorism stuff, but in terms of the business stuff and, the relationship dynamic between the men and women in this film. Like, again, the sexism, I just could smell the sexism and misogyny on the other side of the screen. I could just smell it from watching this, okay? And no, it's true. I could just feel it. It's like it was so there. Ransom, I believe, was one of the main men who believed in her outside of her husband, because he was willing to, of course he betted on something and it was a gamble, but he was willing to invest in her company because he believed in her. And I think he was one of the few, if not only, men outside of her husband to actually, believe in her. Because all these men she was going to invest, she was looking to invest in her company, they wouldn't do it. And she said, oh, I have a plan, I have this. So you can tell this woman had strategy, had plans, she had big ideas and big dreams. And that is another tip and another note you can take from this film, from this series, is, be tenacious and be persistent, and, have a plan and a strategy and figure out what you want to do. So that is what she was doing. She was very ambitious, and, she didn't let anything stop her. And that is what made her successful. And if you think that, it's kind of hard now, imagine how it was back in those days. Because this is the 1900s to like the 1920s. Another thing too is like location sometimes plays a part, because it started off small in where she was at St. Louis, right? It started off pretty small in St. Louis, but when she moved to Harlem by the ending of the 1910s, and we had the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s, so it probably did really well, especially with the stock market boom of the 20s and things like that before you hit the Great Depression. But still, and you have the whole Harlem Renaissance thing, so you'll have a lot of people probably interested in our product. So goes to show you, like New York, I swear we're doing it. We may be too expensive, we may have our problems and crazy people, but we're actually doing it, okay? Despite what's going on now, we've always been that city. Another thing that I took from this film, from the series, is what what I heard from Daymond John, is that become a local hero. So she started trying to sell in her own hometown. Of course, you know, the competition, but aside from that, she tried selling in her own hometown. So that is one thing that Daymond John said about, you know, becoming a local hero. You know, start small, start within your space, and then branch out. And that's what she did, starting from her own place and then going into New York. Another thing too with the sexism, or with, you know, how women have it hard being taken seriously, is she tried to get a loan from a mortician, or she tried to do some business with a mortician, and he basically tries to sexually assault her. And to be honest, I am not sure how true that is. So I'm going to heed that message. But it also goes to show, especially what you're dealing with now. You have women that will get bribed into sleeping with or doing some things that they would not normally do for a chance to, you know, get ahead. And sometimes it's not because they're willing to do it. Sometimes they feel like their back is against the wall. So, you know, thank God she didn't succumb to that. But you see how hard it is for women, especially back in those days. I'm gonna go in with my Mented Cosmetics lip pencil in Night and my NYX Cosmetics Butter Soft Matte Lip Cream in Grwm. This is just a suggestion that Mented Cosmetics should sponsor me. I know that sounds like really weird, but no, I really do like their lip products. Like, they're very good for women of color, especially women of color. Anyone can wear these lip products, but what I like about them is that they're subtle and buildable with the lipsticks that I already have. I feel so good that I can wear a nude that I can be comfortable in, because when I first started this makeup journey, I kind of steered away from, you know, all the brights, lights, and nudes and stuff, especially because I didn't take advantage of lip liner. But with Mented Cosmetics, I don't feel like I have to try too much. It just naturally blends in. It just naturally works. I honestly think I'm out of this. I'm gonna set with the Mario Badescu facial spray. There you have it. That's the look. I'm so glad you guys tuned in with me. I hope you guys got a lot out of this video. I'm sorry that it's another long video. I'm trying to concise my videos and make them more, you know, short length. But I just have a lot to get off my chest, and I like to go into detail so you guys get the gist of what I'm talking about, so I either don't sound like I'm generalizing, or I don't sound like I'm missing out information, or that I don't know what I'm talking about. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you. Would you like to see more Get Ready With Me's and more, you know, makeup vids where I do also commentary? I also want to do more song covers and get back to the music and stuff like that. Also, go check out Good Loving on all streaming services. It's the least you can do because we are in quarantine right now. We don't know how long this quarantine is going to last. I've been hearing rumors about, you know, the quarantine or the pandemic, or, you know, social distancing could take as long as April 30th, hell, even as long as July or August or something like that. So hopefully that is not pretty much the case, because we have to get back to work and we have to get back to doing what we're doing. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.